Okay, so the basic thing about rubrics is you want to have everything in mind before you really press save. The moment you press save, it gets hard to kind of go through here. So for instance, I'll name it something, or the moment you press levels and criteria, that gets locked in, and it gets locked in with the totals and the sort of levels that you have as far as the grade goes. What's great about this is that even though you have the levels, it will calculate the score numerically here. So if I just want to say say I'll just say sample rubric, and I'll just make sure I set it to published. And I don't really need to do anything like this, but like down here, this is the number of criteria I want. And generally speaking, I'll choose more than 3, unless it's a real basic classwork assignment. So say you want 5 criteria and you want 4 levels. I think 4 is a pretty good thing, just by virtue of it kind of giving you the sort of wiggle room to have enough space between failing and passing, but not enough to like be to give you like a lot of work in trying to figure out like really minute errors and stuff, and trying not to be sort of pedantic about hair splitting about the way the kids do it. But if you want to add more, you would add more here before you press save. So as soon as you're ready, hit levels of criteria, and see it saves it and it sets that there. So if I go back to properties and I add a level. Let's look here. I want to say I can't add a level yet, but so I'll have to go over here and I'll have to add a level or add a criterion. Whichever one I do, it's going to basically affect this right here, but not in the same way you would think. So if I add a criterion and I just press, I just call it criterion 6 and I save it. Right. You notice this doesn't change. Even though 4 times 6 would be 24, I would have to go in and have to change that. And it doesn't calculate it for you. So if I want to edit the levels as far as the overall score goes, I would have to do some math in my head or on a calculator right there and change it to this is either 23 or above. This is either 17 and above. Or, I'm not really even sure. I'll just press cancel. So you want to make sure you have all that before you start. And so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this criterion. And as far as this goes, this is just... You can call this what you want, but like I said, it'll divide it down to the hundredths in terms of its thing. So if you want to just give yourself some wiggle room here as far as the criterion goes, you can name the different levels and give real specific feedback here. So what I always do is I always say something like, for instance, if you're grading for spelling, and you can just maybe just mechanics. Like for instance, you're doing a PowerPoint presentation and you say, there were no spelling, grammar, or punctuation errors. And then, then after that you can just say there were 1 or 2 spelling or grammar errors. That way, a single error, a single misplaced period is not going to, reduce their score by, 4 points. And you can give them some wiggle room there as far as that goes. There were 3. And in this case, what I always do is I just copy and paste this, and then just obviously I don't want to go through this whole thing, but you get the idea as far as that goes. And then you can set up some basic things of what would grant full points. So for instance, if you were talking about maybe your animations to your PowerPoint or something, animations. You could say every slide has at least 3 animated elements. And then if, and so that right there, that's a pretty easy, criterion to kind of judge by. So you could just go back and say 1 or 2, or in this case, maybe 1 slide doesn't have, or has fewer than 3 animated elements. And then you can just, once again, copy and paste that throughout and just change it to wherever you want to, whatever you want it to be, 2 slides. And so in this case, and you can just sort of incorporate that, where you'll draw the line between the different levels, and as far as how important they are. Now, for instance, if you wanted to have no difference, for instance, here I could go edit criterion where it says, this right here, maybe automation, for instance. You've got 1 or 2 choices. The entire slideshow is set to start, transition, and restart automatically, and then for the rest you can just put like, there's no chance for this because either it is or it isn't. So you can just put not applicable, and it's like this show is not fully automated. And so this is the one thing that will give you just like there's like a pass or fail for this one. So you just have yes or no, and so you've got 0 points or 1 point. If you wanted to put like a 0 point down here, you could. I tend to just keep it like that. And if for instance they have an egregiously incomplete project, I'll just put a different grade than what you could achieve with this rubric, and I'll just say like the project incomplete, and just kind of go for that. And it's obviously the name of the game is being defensible and being able to explain why you gave them the grade you did. But this rubric thing, it's the real important thing is to kind of get it all situated before you press save, before you go on to it, kind of have an idea of what you want. All right, I hope this helped.